We are so close to the end of the offseason. 16 days away from the start of the NFL season. A few more days than that. I don't do math. That's lame. From the Houston Texans beginning their season. And with us in studio, the man who covers the Houston Texans for ESPN, it's DJ Bien-Aime. DJ, what's up?
I'm doing all right. I just want the audience to know that Paul is a boomer and he was hating on Little League baseball because the kids were celebrating after getting a ground ball out.
Yeah.
That just shows the character.
Everything.
That just shows the character of this guy.
Well, sorry. Unwritten rules say that the next time one of those kids comes out, he needs to get plunked. That's how it works.
That is crazy.
I mean, that's just baseball, DJ. I understand you're a football guy, but in baseball, if you get shown up, you get to throw a ball at the guy. Now, what's ironic about being able to throw a ball at a guy is that the batter can't do anything with the bat against you.
No, right?
He has to just take it
Right.
and then hope that he has the opportunity to somehow get you back in a future plate appearance. Baseball's unwritten rules.
Yep.
Confusing.
Yep.
Football, less confusing. On Saturday, I thought that Jalen Petrie was the star of the game. I thought he looked really good in that nickel role. And I'm guessing this all but confirms that he will be in that spot for the most part this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't taken he's taken very little reps outside of the nickel. Sometimes he's been back deep, but he's been in the slot the majority of camp, and obviously every single snap he's taken throughout preseason has been in the nickel, and he's looked good. Right, he had the pick six, and that was just him just continuing to fight to the ball, and you know he had a TFL. He had one play where even though I think it was a dead play ish. He met Devin Singletary at the sideline. So, yeah, he's looking more like the guy that we saw in his rookie year. I guess like the better version, because when he's around the box, he just feels more natural there. He feels more disruptive there. And it's funny, like last year to start the season, he was around the box a little bit more. That's when he ended up getting hurt because he blitzed Lamar Jackson and Lamar put up his knee and kneed him in the chest incidentally. But even in that game, you could kind of feel. And throughout that first quarter, he was flying around the ball, and that's when he's at his best. So, you know, again, Petrie looks like the guy that we were high going into last season. And looks like he's going to be able to continue on that trajectory and not be the guy that was kind of like, what happened here last year, you know?
But the New York Jets, you covered them. You covered the worst part of the Texans. Is Daniel Jones the worst quarterback you've ever seen? Because that throw sucked.
No. I've seen way worse quarterbacks.
What, Kyle Allen?
Tim Boyle.
I mean, Tim Boyle's here. Yeah,
He saw him in New York, too.
That's true.
Tim Boyle's here.
What's his touchdown interception ratio for his career?
It's like
1 to 16?
2 to 19 or something like that. Yeah. I mean, Zach is way worse than Daniel Jones, though.
Zach Wilson?
It's not even close.
Okay.
Like, they're not even in the same, like, planet.
Jones just got paid.
He did.
That's what changes it a little bit.
And yeah. So it's just a little more disappointing. But like Zach couldn't play at all. So yeah, no, Daniel Jones. Okay. I've seen way worse quarterbacks than Daniel Jones.
So we did see that when the starters were out there on defense, though, that now with Petrie in this new position, we saw Kalen Bullock getting reps with the ones.
Yep.
Is that something we're going to see? You think pretty consistently? Like he's going to maybe not start the game at safety, but we'll see a pretty heavily active role for Bullock as a rookie for this team.
Yeah, I can see by week 4 he's in the starting lineup permanently.
Wow.
I can see by week 4. I mean, at this point, cause like they're rotating, it's only a matter of time. At this point, it's kind of inevitable. And it's not like the guy that's holding on to the spot is like a decorated, accomplished player. Like it's a solid player in Eric Murray that's gonna do his assignment and literally just do that, but won't really like step outside of it and make plays, et cetera, et cetera. So Bullock has already shown the center field ability to be able to, run across the field and make plays on the ball, and he just has a knack for finding passes down the field, things of that nature. So I mean, it's only a matter of time. It's just when. It was kind of similar to when, last year when CJ and Davis were having a quarterback competition. It was only a matter of time until CJ won, right? And he won it pretty early, so I think, Kalen, it might be a little bit later, but he'll eventually be the starter. I think by week 4, probably he'll be starting.
Gallant George, ESPN's DJ Bien-Aime, Houston Texans beat reporter, in studio with us, Joe George, Paul Gallant. The Texans' running game has struggled throughout training camp and in these preseason games, and at least early on, that struggle continued. I know that when I asked him about it Sunday after preseason game number 2, D'Amico said that the blocking needs to be better at the second level. Based off of what you know from both watching and from talking, what's the big issue for the running game right now? How much of it is Dameon Pierce? How much of it is the actual offensive line?
Yeah, it's 50-50. There's some plays where Damien's vision is lacking, and there's some plays where there's nowhere to go. So I know people are like, let's get Cam Akers with the ones, but like he probably would did like a little bit better on a couple of plays. 'Cause remember, he only really got like a couple of carries there. But if the blocking is exactly the same, then you're not going to have much success. And I think at the end of the day, like we have to, at a certain point, we have to accept the Texans' O-line for who they are, right? Like if we go back to last year, they couldn't run the ball efficiently throughout the entire season. Like Devin had some moments, but when they went against better defensive lines, it was null and void. So I think it is what it is, right? Like this is just kind of who this O-line is, right? Like even with Joe Mixon, like I'm not saying,
That's what I was about to ask. Does Joe Mixon change that?
I mean, he can only change it so much, right? Like that's just not a strong suit of theirs, and it kind of is. It is what it is at this point, you know. You're gonna have two fairly young players at center and left guard, and like obviously that's probably a big factor in terms of one, they don't have that much chemistry to working together, so that plays a little bit of part into it. But even when they run like powers and things of that nature, like it doesn't really yield much. The only silver lining point is they haven't played with Laramie, so once they get Laramie, maybe it looks better. But it wasn't like the run game looked better with Laramie last year, you know. So it just kind of it is what it. Granted, it was Laramie and a bunch of injuries, but along the offensive line outside of Shaq. But you know, I've kind of resigned to the fact that because even against the Steelers, right, they didn't play T.J. Watt, they didn't play Highsmith, and they still couldn't run the ball with the starting unit. So you know, they are who they are. And, you know, like now we have three different versions. We've seen them against the Texans defensive line, can't run the ball. Giants defensive line, can't run the ball. Steelers backup defensive line, can't run the ball. At a certain point, you just can't run the ball, you know? So, would Joe Mixon make it better than Dameon has or Cam Akers has? I mean, could Cam do better than Dameon? Sure, but like, I mean, if you're going from like a 2 to like a 4, is that gonna make that much of a difference? Not necessarily.
Is this something that when you think about, the future of the Texans this season, how far they can go, is this a red flag in terms of how great this team can be because they can't run the ball?
Yeah.
Or is this something you think that because of CJ Stroud, they can overcome?
Who's the last quarterback to overcome and make a deep playoff run like the Super Bowl or something like that without having like some semblance of a running game?
Because like Pacheco's been good.
Yeah.
Rashad White was good.
Yeah.
And Leonard Fournette when Tampa won it.
Yeah.
So they've had something, but you got
Playoff Lenny.
They've got nothing.
Lenny.
Right
Yeah. Like you can't. The defensive coordinators, defensive players in the playoffs are too good to put it all on the shoulder of your quarterback. They're just too good. And at that point, we would be like 4 months in, they would have seen every single play that you have outside of like maybe like 2 or 3 that you're holding. They would have seen every single play, understood every single situation, know what you like to do in this situation, that situation. And so like if you're just gonna put it all on just CJ Stroud, who's gonna be 23 at that time, shoulder, then like I think that's gonna limit the ceiling of how far this team can go. So until they can get a better running attack, and they don't have to be like a top 10 rushing attack. They just have to be top 20. And then it's all right, you know. But if it's like 23rd, 24th, and you're averaging like 88 yards rushing a game, like that's just not sustainable throughout the course of a year. Because you look at the majority, most of the actually, like you look at the 4 teams that made the conference championship. I don't know exactly where the Chiefs finished last year in terms of rushing per game, but I know the Lions, Ravens, and Niners all finished within the top 10. So, and then again, like even in that playoff game with the Cowboys and Packers, yeah, Jordan Love made some throws, but their running game ran all over the Cowboys, right? Like the running game really like neutralizes great pass rushes. It neutralizes defenses because like you're on schedule and your whole playbook is available to you. You can run whatever you want to run when it's 2nd and 5 versus when it's 2nd and 9. You could try again. You don't get much. Now it's 3rd and 8. And there's only so many plays. You can only live in 3rd and 8s and 37s for so long.
Texans reporter for ESPN, DJ Bien-Aime, with us in studio. I'm Paul Gallant. He's Joe George. To stay with the running offense, at what point does this fall on Bobby Slowick? Last year, the offensive line had a lot of injuries. Understandable excuse. Devin Singletary ends up being their lead running back by the end of the year. Mm-hmm. This year, it looks like the offensive line is going to be full strength, but from what I understand, generally, a Shanahan offense, whether it's Mike Shanahan back in the day or Kyle Shanahan, some variant of that offense, is supposed to make running the football very easy regardless of your personnel. That's a simplistic way to look at things. Is Bobby Slowick, though, his biggest weakness, at least right now, that running the football has been difficult here?
No, I'd probably put it more on the offensive line coach.
Okay.
I mean, that's what it usually comes down to. Like, how good is your offensive line coach to be able to develop the guys that you need to the point where you can have an effective rushing attack. I would put it more on him because, again, like, Damian looked like a 1,000-yard back with this basically the same offensive line, right? Mm-hmm. They had the same pieces, like three out of 5 pieces. Kenyon Green, Laramie, and Titus, and he was almost a 1,000-yard back. Obviously, scheme plays a big factor into that, so that falls on Slowick, but I think a lot of it still falls on the offensive line. I think Chris
Strausser.
So,
and he has 2 assistants, it seems, Cole Popovich and Zach Yensen.
Because I remember, with Miami, the first year they couldn't run the ball under Mike McDaniel, but then they got a new coach, and they finished as a top 10 rushing attack in 2023. So a lot of it does fall like on how good your offensive line coach is. If your offensive line coach isn't that good, then I think that plays a bigger factor. That's why we always hear about Bill Callahan. Wherever he is, the offensive line looks good and they can run the football. So I think a lot of that falls more on a position coach than anything.
We talked last week about Mechie, and you talked about his confidence and what you were seeing in camp, and we finally saw in this game this weekend against the Giants that he broke out a little bit in preseason action. Is this like John Mechie confidence is back? Is where you view him on this roster change now because of that performance against the Giants? Like, what's your view right now on still the most complicated part of the Texans roster cut down, the wide receiver room?
Yeah, no, I think that game, I'm pretty confident he'll make it now. He might play it next week, but might not have to play that much. But I'm pretty confident he'll make it now because Ben Skowronek, he's been hurt, so he's not gonna make the team.
Robert Woods, he gonna make it?
So I think it depends on if Noah Brown is on IR to start.
Is that a possibility? Because I know he's been out for a little bit.
He's been out for a little bit. There's been buzz that he should come back soon. And, he was running sprints last week at practice. He's running sprints. So, he should be back fairly soon, so it might not be necessary. But if that's the case, then, I think Robert could be on the way out. Because it'll be between Hutch and Robert. And it's like, are you going to pay, Robert doesn't have much guaranteed money on this thing. Hutch is a rookie. He's going to be in year 2. So
Xavier Hutchinson, for those who know.
Yeah. So it's like, would you rather go with the guy that's cheaper, that isn't going to, get on the field that much, but it gives you special teams value? Robert doesn't give you much special team value. He might be a veteran presence, but you got Noah Brown. You got Stephon. Stephon can give you the veteran presence. So, I think that's the decision there. But I think Mechie did what he needed to do to be on the team in that regard.
Texans beat reporter DJ Bien-Aime with us in studio on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 on Twitch, at ESPN 975 on YouTube, at ESPN Houston. So as we get closer and closer to this team finalizing a roster, we still have one more preseason game to go. I know. I feel the same way.
Good.
What would be the most surprising person that doesn't make the team?
Desmond King.
Desmond King, interesting. That makes sense with Jalen Petrie playing in that slot corner position.
And he's not the first guy off the bench for the nickel. It's Miles Bryant.
Wow. Interesting. Okay.
Yep. So, last game, like he literally, like Miles Bryant was the first guy off the bench and got in. So he'll be interesting. He'll be a surprise one for people because I don't think people have like discussed it that much. But yeah, I could see him possibly being a guy that gets cut. I think CJ Henderson could be a guy that gets cut.
I'd barely known he's been out there.
Yeah,
Same thing with Jeffrey Okudah.
yeah.
Something we touched on this a little earlier this week. I'm wondering about the depth at cornerback because once you get past Derek Stingley, who has not the best injury history, and Kamari Lassiter, it's Chris Boyd and Mike Ford who are the first guys in. And Mike Ford has had a rough camp. He gets beat deep a lot. Yeah. And Chris Boyd, he's been out there, but has he been impressive? It makes me wonder with some corners that are still available if that's something that they think about signing a veteran.
Yeah, I think that's what concerns me the most about this team. Like the more that I've watched them, the more I realize they're just pretty top heavy, right?
You mentioned that with the offensive line before, and secondary, same thing.
Yeah, like the only position where I'm like they got a lot of depth there is receiver.
Pass rusher.
And I can say run. No, not really.
Yeah.
You got Will and you got Daniil. Who else you have?
You don't feel good about Barnett? You don't feel good?
Nope. Really?
Why would I feel good about Barnett?
I mean, he was a pretty good impactful player last year, and then he's looked pretty good in preseason so far. He's not a 10-sack guy.
I think
Jeremiah Hughes.
He's long in the tooth.
Yeah.
Like I'm just being honest. Like,
sharp teeth.
Like.
So you think the going after Judon stuff makes sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because they don't have that much depth at edge rusher. Like when you really think about it, like who, like again, outside of Will and Daniil, if one of them misses any time, that D line becomes very average, if not below average.
What about Ali Gay?
Like that's what I'm saying. Like when you actually go through the names and look at the production and the fact that the majority of the D line is on 1-year deals, it's like they can't afford injuries to Will or Daniil. Like now if they have both of them, all right. Now you got a very prominent pass rush. But if one of them is out, which Will has been for a while, now it gets tricky. Because even on the play that Barnett made, you know how long it took for him to get there? 5 seconds. That play is 150% on Daniel Jones. People might see him, but he, blah blah blah. It took him 5 seconds to get there. And again, like Daniel Jones had a clean pocket majority of the game when he was out there. And that speaks more to the depth concerns. And it's not that Giants have they're not known for having great O-lines, even though they invested a lot in it in the offseason. But yeah, it's just me being honest,
fair.
The depth at O-line and D-line, it's top heavy. Like if the main five are healthy, Will, Daniil, Laramie, Shaq, Titus, all right. But if injuries start to happen, which you never know, then it can get tricky because the guys behind them either aren't ready because they're too young, or they've just been journeymen throughout their career, and I would not start to expect them to do anything more. Now, obviously, Nico will be back, and that'll be a massive plus. That'll be a massive plus for Texans defensive line, which is why it was a big loss.
Power ranking needs. So defensive line's up there. Offensive line's up there. Cornerback's up there.
Yeah.
Linebacker, I'd imagine, is up there, too, because what the hell's going on with Christian Harris?
Yeah, exactly. So
any clues as to what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, he's got calf injury.
Same calf injury before.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if,
he's not going to be gone for 8 months like Kyle Tucker.
Hypothetically, let's say, Aziz had to miss a game. And obviously Christian Harris wasn't back. Now you have Jake Hansen and Henry To'oTo'o starting at linebacker. This team they're gonna really have to be healthy to make, that type of run that people think that they can make, right? So, and again, you can't overcome it. I think Buffalo, they were able to overcome it. They were decimated on the defensive side, and they made it to the divisional round. But that took an epic choke job by Miami by blowing their lead in the division. So I mean, again, it's like, their depth for sure. They're top heavy, but if people are healthy, then yeah, they can make a Super Bowl run. But if they're not healthy and they're missing guys in certain spots, like hypothetically, like Laramie had to miss an extended period amount of time, the offense is going to become like a quick game, drop back, pass offense, and like eventually teams are going to be able to pick up on that, and that's going to limit how explosive they could be throughout the year.
I saw you reposted a video from when you were on, I think it was with Will Kunkel and Stutz in July, and you gave a hot take. Derek Stingley Jr., Defensive Player of the Year. How you feeling about that after this preseason game?
Yeah,
Pretty
I mean,
good?
I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Listen to him. Yeah, he's feeling very good about that.
I'm feeling very good about that. The only thing that
no ball. Yeah.
if he has a lot of interceptions, the only thing that can hurt him is it's gonna come down to like, because defensive player of the year is a team stat also. It's kind of like MVP. MVP is also a team stat.
Stats are for losers. Final scores for winners.
Yeah, says the Patriots fan. I get it. That's the only way. That's the only way they look
Win
at
a
it.
playoff game in the first round.
I get it.
Wait, you can't.
I get it.
Dolphins blow.
But
I'm
But,
Tua. My coaches need to be.
well, Flores was tripping. But anyway,
I know he even admitted to it. To be
yeah.
fair.
What was I saying? So you threw me off.
Something about Stingley.
Stingley.
Sorry.
My CT kicked in because Paul knocked me upside the head. Yeah, like, it's a team stat, right? Like Myles Garrett got Defensive Player of the Year last year, and his defensive unit. They were like number one total defense in the league. So that's usually how it goes, right? Lamar got MVP, even though he didn't have the best stats across the board at all. Actually, and there wasn't a single stat he led in. I don't even think there was anything he led. He was even in top 5 in. But his team, had the best record, arguably the best record in the league. So that was that. So Stingley, I think he'll have the play of a guy that's a top tier guy, but with the interception thing on nature. But the defense is gonna have to be a top 5 unit for him to really get that buzz. Because again, it's a team stat more than anything. Like it's at the end of the day, it's a team stat as much as it is individual.
It's sort of, I feel like in basketball where it's hard for a guard to win Defensive Player of the Year, it's hard for a corner to win that too. You're going to have to be on a great defense and you're going to have to put up some numbers like Stephon Gilmore all those years ago.
Yeah. Like I was just thinking that. Like they had the number 1 defense in the league and he was the best corner in the league. So boom. That's a good combination there. I remember Xavier Howard finished 3rd in 2020. I think Miami had a top 3 defense in the league. Even though they give 56 in that Week 17 game to Buffalo, but I digress. That's a Flores-led defense, by the way. People won't talk about that. Anyway, but he finished 3rd, and he had 10 picks that year. So, I think Bland would have had a really, really good shot last year if he didn't start giving up a boatload of touchdowns.
Bland, the touchdown machine.
Yeah, he started giving up a bunch of touchdowns while he was, scoring touchdowns. He was giving up a bunch of touchdowns. But I think if he would have not been getting cooked on the national stage, he could have finished in the top some. So it really just comes down to how good your defense is and what are your stats like. So I think, if the defense stays healthy, Derek could be in that. He'll be in that talk for sure.
I bet on Daniil Hunter to win Defensive Player of the Year.
What? Why would you do that?
Because he finished 5th in the NFL in sacks last year.
Yeah.
He did, but he doesn't.
If he finishes with
Look at his
16,
biceps too.
If he finishes with 16 plus sacks again last year, and they're one of the best defensive units in the NFL, he's going to have massive numbers. Because if Minnesota was good last year, it was a little bit of money. It was not a lot of it of money. But I just think if you were a top pass rushing group in the NFL, he had more sacks than Myles Garrett. Why wouldn't he win it?
All right.
Biceps,
so I just pulled up. All right. So another thing too,
They're so big.
We are talking about
veiny.
It is a media award where you have people with implicit biases. Daniil's not a big enough name to win Defensive Player of the Year.
It does hurt it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through.
That's your fault, DJ.
I'm gonna go through
media.
since 2000. Who's won? Ray Lewis, Michael Strahan, Derek Brooks, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Brian Urlacher, Jason Taylor, Bob Sanders, James Harrison, Charles Woodson, Troy Polamalu, Terrell Suggs, T.J. Watt 3 times, Luke Kuechly, Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, Stephon Gilmore, Aaron Donald again, T.J. Watt, Nick Bosa, and Myles Garrett.
Yeah, Sanders is really the only one that stands out because he had a 2-year run where he was
right.
That's a good point.
My counter: C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans are going to be on primetime 6 games this year. So if Daniil Hunter balls out in those games and has 3 sacks for Dak Prescott and the Cowboys,
he's just going to be known as Hunter.
Yeah, he's going to be known Hunter. Like I don't think he has the buzz to get that type of.
Well,
award.
I'm making that buzz because of his biceps.
Yeah, Paul's all about his
liberal
biceps.
media doesn't want to talk about his biceps.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
DJ's intimidated by his biceps.
well,
I just want to know what he does.
but like 16 sacks. I mean, I just don't know if that would get. Daniil is just not a like from a name perspective. Like it's just hard for me to envision people because
Like
honestly
Will Anderson's more likely because of
if
the
he
name.
had if
Because
so
of the name.
if Will had 16, Daniil had 16. Will has a way better shot of winning Defensive Player of the Year.
All right.
It's not, and it's not even. And I'm not saying it's fair or not, but we are talking about people that people that vote, who don't necessarily. I won't say they don't watch all the games. Well, they actually don't. They actually don't. They actually don't.
They don't watch all the games.
They don't watch all the games. Actually,
They can't watch all.
They
the
can't, and that's not fair to them. So like, Texas will be on prime time a lot, which will help. Which could help your argument, but it's still like Daniil Hunter. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, Damar Hamlin did not win comeback player of the year after dying on a football field, and they give it to Joe Flacco because Joe Flacco just stunk the year before. He came back. It was a cooler story. He's a bigger. Well, I mean, Damar is a bigger name per se, but in terms of on the football field, Joe Flacco as a player is a more renowned player. So like,
That's fair.
like all that stuff plays a factor into it. That's why
Yeah, Hamlin's a special teams player.
Yeah,
that's part of it.
yeah, but I mean, he should have won the comeback player. He died on the football field. I like that was one of the most egregious mistakes in voting history.
Here's the problem with it: is that they had him finish second, and John Mechie wasn't in the top 10. He overcame cancer.
So that's fine.
And
Those two,
ACL.
it should have been between those two. It should have been between those two. Like, period. It should be between those two. Like, I'm fine with that. Like, if Tank Dell does not win comeback player of the year, then we should get rid of the award. He got shot and he broke his leg. It should be minus 30,000 for Tank Dell to win comeback player of the year. But he won't. He might not because for whatever. Brian Robinson didn't win comeback player of the year. And he got shot in season while getting robbed. Yeah. But hey, if you have some quarterback that just sucked the year before, he throws for like maybe 2,500 yards, he'll win the award. So like
it's gonna be Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, exactly. You can already forget about it. All Aaron got to do is like throw 23 touchdowns, 3,800 yards, 5 picks. Oh, comeback player of the year. He popped his Achilles.
He's the
and he came back.
He overcame skipping mandatory camp for Egypt.
It's like
that's a lot.
But what about Tank? Tank got shot and he broke his leg. So Aaron Rodgers, he's a quarterback. He's cool. You know what I'm saying? Like like that.
He was almost the vice president.
He was almost exactly. I hate the fact that DeMar didn't win comeback player of the year. I think it completely refutes and like poops on what the award's supposed to be. Like they oh my God. They just man, that was a
we got DJ worked up because he's clearly over the preseason, but all right, now we know your triggers. We're gonna get you next time right away. I'm gonna give a long thought out take about why Damar Hamlin didn't deserve it.
Okay.
I'll go full Skip Bayless on it. He's DJ Bien-Aime. You can catch his work for ESPN covering the Houston Texans. Always a pleasure, DJ. We'll see you next week.